Hi, I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We're in Shelton, Washington at the Mason County Historical Society Car Show. This is an annual show. Hundreds of cars turn out every year. This year's no different. There are over 300 cars here. And as usual, there are great cars driven by some really nice people. Or you're going to do what you do every week. You're going to meet some of those people, see some of those cars, and hear some great music. So kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. Mark Wilson, your 34 Ford Coupe is really cool. I'm walking around here, the show in Shelton, and the scallops, the color, the front end, it's really cool. Tell us about it.
It was built back in 1999. Came out of the Hollywood, California area. It belonged to Tri-C Engineering, built the car, and it was kind of like one of their show cars. They displayed a lot of their special pieces and parts on it. It's had a couple owners since then, and I was lucky enough to get it. Just a really fun car.
I'm a fan of scallops over flames, and you have scallops with a little bit of a flame look to them, but is that a preference of yours, or is it just the way it came?
It's just the way it came, and they're kind of unusual. They're like they're upside down or something. They're not like your normal scallops. And the guy that did the scallops, they call him Otis, H.E. Otis. He's a pretty famous pinstriper out of California. A lot of the fab work was done by, believe it or not, Gene Winfield. Did a lot of the metal work on it, and fabulous work. All the fit and finish is really nice. And really
We've had Gene on the show numerous times. He's quite the magician. The front end, the grill, tell us about that. That's one of the most unique things about this.
I was told that was all hand fab at the same time when they did everything else on it, and I don't know if Gene had something to do with that nose or not, but I know that he did all the louvers and that fab work there, and the hood. He built the hood and a bunch of that stuff. When I saw this, it was just so unique that it's really, to get a lot of comments on it.
Yeah. To improve on a 34 Ford grill or even equal it is pretty tough, but I think it happened with this.
Yeah, and the car's got 20-some thousand miles of just doing car shows and rod runs, so it's got some use on it, and there's some dings and bangs. I mean, but I don't think I want to fix anything on it because I kind of like the chip paint and stuff. It gives a little patina. It's neat.
What makes this run? What's going on under the hood?
Well, it's got a ZZ3 motor in it, 345 horse, and then there's a Rochester tri-power setup on it, and it Edmunds air cleaners and a lot of chrome and polished goodies underneath there, so nice looking motor compartment.
It has a traditional look to it. This looks like something you could have seen on the road in 1962. So.
Yeah, it's kind of got like that SoCal look or whatever. It looks a lot like that, and same colors and everything. And it's unique for sure. I like it a lot.
Well, Mark Wilson, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the Vintage Vehicle Show. I love the grill. I love the scallops. I love the car.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for inviting me on.
You bet. Ray Kimball, 58 Edsels are very cool. 58 Edsel convertibles are even cooler. Tell us about this car.
This car was bought new in Olympia by my father-in-law. I bought it from him in 1970, put it away for about 20 years and gathered up a few parts I needed and completely restored it. There's 930 of this particular model built, Citation, and a Continental kit was put on at the dealer, and this is the way they bought it, the showroom floor in Olympia.
One of the fellows putting the show on here told me that at some point in the history, the front end was taken off this and replaced with a Mercury front end.
Yes, my father-in-law and his first wife, they were teased about the front end. So they had Titus Will in Tacoma, cut the hood a little bit, and a one-piece Mercury bumper. So it didn't look like an Edsel. And they took the emblems off the side. They didn't care about the Edsel part anymore. So when I bought it, I had a lot of parts to find.
The reaction from the general public on this, are the years of teasing people about Edsels over, and is it now, wow, it's an Edsel?
Pretty much. A lot of the young kids don't know what it is. There's about 125 left in the world, according to the Edsel Club, and this is one of them. I've made the Edsel calendar twice, 2002 and 2012. The other feature is electric shift in the steering wheel. That gave me a lot of problems. That's been a problem with Edsel from day one. And we finally figured it all out. So
you have the push buttons in the center of the steering wheel, and then the speedometer spins around, right?
Speedometer spins around.
What's the motor in this?
It's an E475, which is strictly an Edsel motor. The heads have no valve chamber. The block is like a 348 Chevy, bored 3 times.
And it puts out how many horsepower?
About 400.
And cubic inches, it's 470?
Yeah, 475 torque is what they were going by then.
What's the most unusual comment that's ever been made to you as an Edsel owner?
It belongs in a museum. Well, a lot of them laugh at it but then they start looking at it and they say, hey, what a car.
Well, Ray, that's what I say. What a car. It is absolutely gorgeous. So thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
During the winter, I wear turtlenecks a lot. Just something I do, keeps me warm. And I would go to shows over the last, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, and I'd see this tall guy walking around wearing a turtleneck. And believe it or not, it's like a private club, guys with turtlenecks. And we would nod at each other, and eventually we got to teasing each other about our turtlenecks and then got to know each other. So Steve Paulsrude, I like your 50 Old. Steve, this is absolutely beautiful. Tell us about it.
This car was built in 1994 as a race car, but the guy turned it into a show car at the same time, which is unusual. Most race cars aren't show cars. They're just fast cars. Well, this one is fast, and it's also a show car. So Al Cavarmi in Prineville, Oregon, originally built the car with an all-tube frame, Chris Alston tube frame, and it's beautiful body work and sheet metal work. And I saw the car in Eugene in 1994, and I wanted it. He wouldn't sell it to me, and finally I got it last year. We had to change the entire powertrain because it wasn't suitable for street, and we put in a 468 aluminum head Chevrolet motor, which with a 4-barrel, like a 4500, and now it's got a 700 R4 transmission in it. It gets very low gas mileage, probably 5 or 6 miles to the gallon, but if you can afford to buy the car, I guess you can afford the gas.
Yeah. You don't see many, they're not really rare, but you don't see many 4950, 5152 Oldsmobiles at shows. So this just leapt out at me. It's such a, I always thought of these as Chevrolets, but just a little bit cooler because they came with V8s in them, and now you've taken it up one more. What is the most rewarding thing about driving this car?
I think it's that you probably have the only one. I mean, no one is insane enough to build a car like this for the street. And this is sort of like a modern old Oldsmobile to me. And I think that's the most rewarding thing. Plus, the quality of the car I really like. So.
And I love that you left the front emblem on, the world, the globe on there, and the rocket on the top. That is really classy.
You know, I appreciate that because I think a lot of people like that part. Even when they see that, sometimes they're not sure what it is until they look at that globe, and then they go, "Oh, it's an Oldsmobile." This car is still a fast race car, but it looks like a 50 Oldsmobile, which is what it is.
And you have kind of a Pro Street looking interior on it.
Yeah, it's the tin work inside, which you can't see from here, is just impeccable. It was all done by a guy that's, all he does is trim and tin work. And I don't know how many, there's 138 pieces of tin inside this car, putting the interior together. And I only covered up enough of it for the driver's front feet and for the firewall. I left all the rest of it like it was as a race car because it's so appealing. Everybody likes it regardless if they're a car person or not. The people that like original cars like it because it's got all the trim on it, and the race car guys love it because it's a race car, which is very unusual. You don't get that in combination, so I'd say.
Well, I have a hunch the vintage vehicle viewers love it too. So, Steve, thank you very much for being on the show. And I picked this car because it's one of the coolest cars here. So, thank you very much.
I appreciate it very much.
All right, and dig out those turtlenecks when the fall comes.
I will, definitely, and you get yours out too. Maybe we can have a swap.
Okay, all right. John D. Hay, I am a Studebaker fan. I own a couple of them. I've owned a few in the past. There's more in my future. So I really like your 1930 Studebaker President. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a car that I've known pretty much all of my life. My dad found it in an abandoned garage here in Shelton about early 70s. And when we actually went together to look at it the first time, I think he was going to make a deal on it. He never did, but he told one of his best friends about it. And he bought the car and had it all of these years. He recently, sadly, passed away, and his son inherited the car and knew how much I loved it and allowed me to buy it. So now I'm the caretaker.
Are you a Studebaker guy or just an old car guy?
Sure. I'm a Studebaker guy, and I've always loved the President being the full classic 8-cylinder engine type car. So yeah, I'm a fan.
This show is made up of a lot of hot rods and customs and lowered cars and flamed cars. So this really stands out as unusual in the 300 or so cars that are here.
You know, it's just my thing. I like stock cars, but I love this show. It's just so much fun, you know, the up and down the street, and also the cars. I mean, I don't mind hot rods at all. I just happen to be into the antique cars, preservation type stuff.
You haven't updated with a Mustang front suspension and a 350 Chev motor, so how is this to drive?
It's actually pretty good. I drove it down the freeway to get it here, so I was going probably, 55, 60 down the freeway. And it, bias ply tires, mechanical brakes. So you plan ahead when you're going to stop, that kind of thing. But it's got a lot of growl. It when it's idling and just when you're taking off, it kind of almost sounds like a small block V8. It's about 350 cubic inch and real high horsepower for its year of 1930. So it's great on the road.
Studebaker in 1930 wasn't a top of the pecking order. It was kind of up in the upper third, as far as quality?
Well, the President, definitely. They were kind of a little bit more than entry-level car, Studebaker was. They had 8-cylinder cars that were very affordable. But remember that Studebaker bought Pierce Arrow in about 1928, and that's when the President came out. They claim that there wasn't a total collaboration between them, but there's a lot of pieces between the Pierce Arrow of the time and the President, the Studebaker President at least.
I just thought it was interesting that, President and Studebaker Commander, and they had a Studebaker Dictator. They decided after a while that wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah, they liked the chain of command, I think. Yeah.
Do you have, I have this vision of some 85, 90-year-old guy walking down the street and seeing this and just being lost in dreams of his youth.
Yeah, that's happened a few times. And most of those folks, if they were still around, would be 80, 90, 100 years old. So I'm real used to that, even growing up, in the 70s, being around these antique cars.
Well, I'm not elderly yet, but it's not that far away, so I hope when I'm stumbling or I'm walking down the street and I see this car that I have good memories of this conversation and the love of Studebaker. So, John, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
We have had a great time here in Shelton, Washington at the Mason County Historical Society Car Show. Great people. Thank you very much to them for inviting us out here. And everybody that's been on the show, it's been such a nice time to have you guys on the show and see your cars. It's just great. So thank you very much.
Hey, sir, go ahead and put the mic down for me and face the car for me.
I'll take your mic.
Put your right hand behind your back, sir. What? You're under arrest for filming in the street, sir.
No, we don't have a permit. Gordon, I told you we should have had a permit. Damn it. Tune in next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.